Exhausted and overworked, Sierra falls asleep on a stranger's luxury couch, only to wake up to eggs, coffees, and the penthouse owner himself. But can she trust the man who might be behind her family's eviction? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The alarm clock blared for the third time that morning. Sierra James groaned and forced her eyes open, her body aching from yesterday's double shift. She had exactly 47 minutes to shower, get dressed, and catch the bus to her waitressing job at Rosie's Diner. "Sierra, are you up?" Her grandmother's voice called from the kitchen of their small Newark apartment. "Justin needs lunch money." Sierra rubbed her eyes. "Coming, Grandma." At 28, Sierra's life was an endless cycle of work and responsibility. Between waitressing at the diner, taking night shifts at a call center, and cleaning luxury condos, she barely had time to breathe. But she kept going, day after day, because she had no choice. Her younger brother Justin's community college tuition wasn't going to pay itself, and her grandmother's social security check barely covered the rent. In the tiny bathroom, Sierra splashed cold water on her face and stared at her reflection. Dark circles had become a permanent feature under her brown eyes. Her naturally curly hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail. "No time for vanity," she muttered to herself. 15 minutes later, Sierra rushed into the kitchen where her grandmother was making eggs for Justin. "Good morning, sleepyhead," said Grandma Rose, her hands shaking slightly as she pushed a plate towards Sierra. "Can't eat now, Grandma. I'm late." Sierra grabbed her backpack and kissed her grandmother's cheek. She slipped a $20 bill into Justin's hand. "For lunch this week, and don't spend it on those video games." Justin, 19 and lanky, rolled his eyes. I know. Thanks, sis." "I'll be home late," Sierra called as she headed for the door. "I've got the cleaning job at the high-rise after the diner." "You're working too hard," her grandmother called after her. "You need to rest." Sierra pretended not to hear. Rest was a luxury she couldn't afford. The morning shift at Rosie's Diner was particularly brutal. A bus of tourists had stopped in, leaving minimal tips and maximum mess. By the time Sierra clocked out at 3, her feet were throbbing. "You look dead on your feet," said Manny, the short-order cook, as Sierra hung up her apron. "Thanks for the compliment," Sierra replied with a tired smile. "I mean it. You need to take care of yourself. You're young. You should be out having fun, not working 3 jobs." Sierra shrugged. "Bills don't pay themselves, Manny." "There's more to life than bills, Sierra." "Not in my world." She waved goodbye and headed for the bus stop. Her next job was cleaning at the Apex, one of Newark's most exclusive high-rise condominiums. The cleaning company Sierra worked for had contracts with several wealthy residents who paid extra for personalized service. Today, she was assigned to the penthouse on the top floor, a client she'd never met but who was known to travel frequently and tip well. "Ms. James," the building manager greeted her as she signed in. "Mr. Kessler's unit is ready for you. He's out of town until tomorrow, so take your time. Here's the key card." Sierra nodded, too tired for small talk. She took the elevator to the top floor, her cleaning cart in tow. The penthouse was stunning, all sleek lines, glass, and chrome. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, but there was something cold about the space, almost clinical. Despite the expensive furniture and artwork, it didn't feel like a home. "Rich people," Sierra muttered as she began, dusting the shelves lined with books that looked like they'd never been opened. She worked methodically, vacuuming the pristine carpet, wiping down surfaces that were barely touched, and straightening pillows that seemed perpetually fluffed. But halfway through vacuuming the living room, a wave of exhaustion hit her like a physical force. "Just a minute," she whispered to herself, sitting down on the edge of the white leather couch. "Just need to catch my breath." The softness of the couch enveloped her. Sierra leaned her head back just for a moment. Her eyelids grew heavy. Before she knew it, she had curled up on her side, her body finally surrendering to the exhaustion she'd been fighting for weeks. And she slept. Hours. Later, Sierra was pulled from a deep sleep by the aroma of coffee and something else, eggs. Her eyes flew open in panic as she realized where she was. She had fallen asleep in a client's home, on their couch. "Oh my God," she gasped, sitting up abruptly. That's when she saw him. A man standing in the open kitchen, his back to her as he stood at the stove. He was dressed casually in jeans and a dark t-shirt, humming softly to himself as he cooked. Sierra's heart pounded in her chest. This had to be Dorian Kessler, the owner of the penthouse. The client who wasn't supposed to be home until tomorrow. "I'm so sorry," Sierra began, scrambling to her feet. "I don't know what happened. I just sat down for a second and—" The man turned around, spatula in hand, and Sierra's words died in her throat. Dorian Kessler was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair and striking blue eyes. He didn't look angry. In fact, he was smiling. "You're awake," he said simply. Sierra felt her face grow hot with embarrassment. "Mr. Kessler, I am so sorry. I've never done anything like this before. I understand if you want to report me to the cleaning service. I'll go right now." She began frantically gathering her things, expecting to be fired on the spot. "Sierra, right?" Dorian asked, his voice calm. She froze. "Yes?" "Would you like some breakfast?" Sierra blinked in confusion. "Breakfast? But it's—" She glanced at her watch and gasped. 8 o'clock? At night? I've been asleep for 5 hours. Dorian shrugged. "I've always been a breakfast for dinner kind of guy, and you looked like you needed the rest more than I needed a clean floor." Sierra stood there, clutching her cleaning supplies completely, bewildered by his reaction. "You're not mad. Why would I be mad? You were exhausted. You fell asleep." He turned back to the stove and flipped something in the pan. "Besides, it was kind of nice to come home and find someone here for a change. Even if they were unconscious, I don't understand." Dorian plated the food, scrambled eggs with cheese and toast, and set it on the kitchen island. "Sit. Eat. We can talk about it if you want, or we can pretend it never happened. Your choice." Sierra hesitated, then slowly approached the kitchen island. This was so strange, so unexpected, but the food smelled amazing and she suddenly realized how hungry she was. "Thank you," she said quietly, sliding onto a stool. Dorian poured her a cup of coffee and pushed it toward her. "Cream? Sugar?" "Both, please." As he prepared her coffee, Sierra studied him. Dorian Kessler wasn't what she'd expected. From the coldness of his apartment, she'd imagined someone older, sterner, but the man before her had kind eyes and a gentle manner that put her at ease despite the bizarre situation. "My flight got in." "Early?" Dorian explained as he sat across from her with his own plate. "I was supposed to be in Chicago until tomorrow, but the meetings wrapped up sooner than expected." Sierra took a bite of the eggs. They were delicious. "You're a good cook. One of the few things I can do in a kitchen," he admitted with a smile. "My mother taught me how to make perfect scrambled eggs when I was 10. Said every man should know how to make at least one decent meal." Sierra nodded, still feeling surreal about the whole situation. "I really am sorry about falling asleep. I've been working a lot of hours lately." 3 jobs, right?" Sierra's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "How did you know that?" "You talk in your sleep," Dorian said with a small smile. "Nothing too revealing, just something about needing to call the center to change your shift because of the diner." Sierra felt her cheeks flush again. "Oh, 3 jobs sounds exhausting." "It is, but necessary." Sierra took a sip of her coffee. "Perfect with just the right amount of cream and sugar. My brother's in community college, and my grandmother needs help with the bills." Dorian nodded, not with pity but with genuine understanding. "Family first, I get that." For a moment they ate in comfortable silence. Then Sierra's phone buzzed with a text. It was from her grandmother. "Are you okay? It's getting late." Reality came crashing back. "I need to go," Sierra said, standing up quickly. "My grandmother's worried." "Of course." Dorian stood too. "Let me call you a car." "No, that's not necessary. I can take the bus." "It's late and you're tired. Please let me do this." The sincerity in his eyes made Sierra relent. "Okay, thank you." As Dorian called for a car service, Sierra quickly finished cleaning the areas she'd missed before falling asleep. When she was done, Dorian walked her to the elevator. "Your car will be waiting downstairs," he said. "And Sierra? Yes? Get some rest when you get home, real rest." Sierra smiled, touched by his concern. "I'll try." As the elevator doors closed between them, Sierra let out a long breath. "What a strange evening. She should have been mortified, possibly unemployed. Instead, she'd had dinner with one of the wealthiest clients on her cleaning route, and he'd been kind. The car was waiting as promised, a sleek black sedan with a professional driver who opened the door for her. As Sierra settled into the back seat, she couldn't help but think about Dorian Kessler's smile and the way he'd looked at her, not as the cleaning lady who'd fallen asleep on his couch, but as a person. "Where to, miss?" the driver asked. Sierra gave him her address, then leaned back against the seat. For the first time in months, she felt something other than exhaustion and worry. She felt seen, and somehow, that made everything else a little easier to bear. The next morning, Sierra woke up feeling surprisingly refreshed. For once, she hadn't dreamed about bills or schedules. Instead, she'd dreamed of blue eyes and scrambled eggs. "You look better today," Grandma Rose commented as Sierra entered the kitchen. "Got some color in your cheeks." Sierra smiled. "I got a good night's sleep for once." "Miracle of miracles," her grandmother teased, sliding a cup of coffee toward her. "So what happened yesterday? You came home in that fancy car." Sierra hesitated. How could she explain falling asleep on a client's couch? "Just a mix-up with the cleaning schedule. The client was nice about it. Nice enough to send you home in a private car," her grandmother said with a raised eyebrow. "It was late, he was being considerate." Sierra checked her watch. "I have to go. I'm covering Tanya's shift at the diner." "On your day off?" "Sierra, you need to rest." "We need the money, Grandma," Sierra replied, kissing her cheek. "Justin's tuition payment is due next week." The diner was busy, which kept Sierra's mind off Dorian Kessler. She'd been embarrassed about falling asleep, but more confused by his kindness. Rich people, in her experience, didn't make breakfast. "For their cleaning stuff." "Earth to Sierra," Manny called from the kitchen window. "Order up for table 7. Sierra snapped back to reality. "Coming." By the time her shift ended, Sierra was exhausted again. She checked her phone and saw a message from the cleaning service. "Schedule change. Apex Penthouse tomorrow 2 p.m. Client requested you specifically." Sierra stared at the message. Dorian had asked for her after she'd fallen asleep on his couch. It didn't make sense. The next day, Sierra arrived at the Apex precisely at 2. The doorman nodded at her with more respect than usual as she signed in. "Ms. James, Mr. Kessler said to send you right up." When the elevator doors opened to the penthouse, Sierra was surprised to find Dorian there, working at a sleek desk by the windows. "So you're home," she said, wheeling in her cleaning cart. Dorian looked up from his laptop and smiled. "I had some work to do here today." Sierra nodded, trying to maintain professionalism. "I'll try to stay out of your way." "You're not in my way." Dorian closed his laptop. "Can I get you something to drink before you start? Water, coffee?" Sierra blinked. "No, thank you. I should get to work." "Of course." Dorian reopened his laptop, but Sierra could feel him watching her as she began dusting. After about 20 minutes of awkward silence, Dorian spoke again. "Can I ask you something, Sierra?" She paused. "Sure. How long have you been working 3 jobs?" The question caught her off guard. "About 2 years now, since my brother started college." "And before that?" "2 jobs, she said with a small smile. "The diner and a department store." Dorian nodded thoughtfully. "And you do all this for your family?" "My brother and grandmother. My parents died in a car accident when I was 18. Justin was only 9. Sierra wasn't sure why she was telling him this. She rarely talked about her parents. "I'm sorry," Dorian said, his eyes sincere. "That must have been incredibly hard." Sierra shrugged, uncomfortable with his sympathy. "Life happens. You deal with it." "Do you ever get time for yourself? To do things you enjoy?" Sierra laughed. "Like what?" "Vacations to Paris, spa days." "Like reading, watching movies, just being." The question startled her. No one ever asked her about what she enjoyed. "I read sometimes, before bed if I'm not too tired." "What do you like to read?" "You ask a lot of questions," Sierra said, trying to deflect. Dorian smiled. "Sorry, occupational hazard. I run a data security company. Questions are how I solve problems." "I'm not a problem to solve, Mr. Kessler." "Dorian, please." "And no, you're not a problem. You're interesting." Sierra rolled her eyes. "A cleaning lady with 3 jobs is hardly interesting." "I disagree." Dorian stood up and walked to the kitchen. Would you like some water? I'm getting some. Sierra hesitated, then nodded. Thank you. As Dorian handed her the glass, their fingers brushed. Sierra felt a small jolt at the contact and quickly looked away. To answer your question, she said, I like to read novels. My favorite is The Heart's Journey Home by Eleanor Wright. I don't think I know it. It's about a woman who loses everything but finds something more valuable than what she lost. Sierra took a sip of water. It's probably too sentimental for someone like you. Someone like me? Dorian raised an eyebrow. Successful. Practical. Data-driven, Dorian laughed. You figured me out in 2 meetings? Sierra felt herself blush. I should get back to work. For the next few weeks, a strange pattern emerged. Dorian was always home during Sierra's scheduled cleaning times. At first, she thought it was coincidence. Then she realized he was arranging his schedule around her visits. Their conversations grew longer each time. Dorian asked questions one else bothered to ask her. How was she sleeping? What made her laugh? Did she ever dream of doing something else? And Sierra found herself answering honestly, drawn to his genuine interest and easy smile. One day, as she was cleaning the kitchen, Dorian called from his office. Sierra, could you come here for a minute? She walked to the doorway of his home office. Yes? I was wondering if you could help me with something. He gestured to a stack of folders. I need these organized by date, but I have a video call in 5 minutes. Sierra nodded. I can do that. Thank you. The call shouldn't take more than an hour. As Sierra sorted through the folders, she couldn't help glancing at some of the documents. Most were business reports and financial statements for Kessler Data Security, but one folder caught her eye. Newark Renewal Project. Inside were plans for redeveloping several blocks in Newark, including the area where her grandmother lived. The proposal outlined converting older residential buildings into modern, upscale apartments and retail spaces. Sierra's stomach dropped. If these plans went through, the rent in her grandmother's building would skyrocket. They'd be forced to move, along with dozens of other families who had lived there for generations, and Dorian's company was backing. She quickly closed the folder when she heard Dorian end his call. He came out of the conference room with a smile that faded when he saw her expression. Everything okay? He asked. Sierra nodded stiffly. The folders are organized. Thank you. Dorian studied her face. Are you sure you're all right? Fine. I need to finish the bathrooms. Sierra worked in silence for the rest of her shift, her mind racing. How could Dorian be so kind to her personally while his company planned to displace her family? Was his friendliness just a way to ease his conscience? When she finished cleaning, Dorian was waiting by the door. Sierra, did I say something wrong? She shook her head. No, I'm just tired. Let me call you a car. The bus is fine. Dorian sighed. Please, it's pouring rain. Sierra relented, too emotionally drained to argue. Thank you. The next week, Sierra requested a schedule change. She couldn't face Dorian, not after what she'd discovered. But the cleaning service refused. Mr. Kessler specifically requested you, Sierra. He even increased his payment for your services. So Sierra returned to the penthouse, determined to keep things professional and distant. But when she arrived, Dorian wasn't there. Instead, on the kitchen counter was a used paperback copy of The Heart's Journey Home with a sticky note attached. I read it. You were right, it wrecked me. Sierra picked up the book, running her fingers over the worn cover. He'd actually read her favorite book. The gesture touched something deep inside her, something she'd kept carefully guarded. She cleaned the penthouse in a daze, conflicted by her feelings. When she finished, she noticed another note on the counter. Had to leave for a meeting. Help yourself to anything in the fridge. In the refrigerator, Sierra found a container with her name on it. Inside was a perfectly made sandwich and a slice of chocolate cake. Before she could stop herself, Sierra was crying. No one had made her lunch since her mother died. It was such a simple thing, but it felt enormous. She sat at the kitchen island and ate the sandwich, tears streaming down her face. How could someone be so thoughtful and so destructive at the same time? When Sierra got home that evening, she found her grandmother and Justin in an animated discussion with several neighbors in their small living room. Sierra, thank goodness you're home, her grandmother said. "We just got notice that our building might be sold to developers. They want to turn it into luxury apartments." "They can't do that," Sierra said weakly, though she knew they could. "They're having a community meeting tomorrow night," said Mrs. Patel from next door. "Everyone's going to protest." "We should go too," Justin said. "They can't just push us out of our homes." Sierra nodded, her heart heavy. "Yes, we should." That night, Sierra couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Dorian, his smile, his questions, the book, the sandwich, and then the development plans that would destroy her community. The next morning, Sierra called in sick to the diner and went to the library to research Kessler data security. She discovered that Dorian wasn't just an employee. He was the CEO and founder. His company had recently expanded into real estate technology, partnering with developers to create smart communities. One article mentioned the Newark Renewal project specifically, with a quote from Dorian: "We believe in creating modern, sustainable urban spaces that serve the community's evolving needs." Sierra felt sick. Evolving needs meant pricing out families like hers who had lived there for generations. That evening, Sierra, Justin, and Grandma Rose joined their neighbors at the community center. The room was packed with worried residents. At the front, representatives from the development company were setting up a presentation, and then Sierra saw him, Dorian, standing slightly apart from the other businessmen, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. Their eyes met across the room. Sierra saw recognition flash across his face, followed by confusion. He clearly hadn't expected to see his cleaning lady at a community meeting about property development. The developer began his presentation, talking about urban renewal and economic opportunity. But when residents asked about affordable housing options, his answers were vague. What happens to the people who already live here? Sierra found herself standing, her voice stronger than she felt. "Where are we supposed to go?" The developer cleared his throat. "There will be provisions for current residents, of course, but the market dictates certain realities. Realities that make you rich and make us homeless," Sierra retorted. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "Ms. James raises a valid concern," Dorian suddenly spoke up, stepping forward. Everyone turned to look at him. "The current plan doesn't adequately address displacement." The developer looked startled. "Mr. Kessler, we've discussed this." "Not thoroughly enough, apparently." Dorian's eyes found Sierra's again. "I think we need to revisit our approach. This community deserves better." The meeting ended in disarray, with the developers promising to consider all feedback. As people filed out, Sierra felt a hand on her arm. "Sierra," Dorian said quietly, "we need to talk." She pulled away. "About what?" "How you made me breakfast, while your company made us homeless." The hurt in his eyes was genuine. "It's not that simple. It never is for people like you." Sierra turned to leave. "Please," Dorian called after her, "let me explain." Sierra paused, then turned back. "Tomorrow, during my scheduled cleaning time, I'll hear what you have to say." As she walked away with her family, Sierra felt torn between anger and confusion. For weeks, she'd let herself believe that Dorian Kessler might be different from other wealthy people she'd known, that he might actually see her as a person, not just a service provider. Now she didn't know what to believe. All she knew was that tomorrow she would demand the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Sierra arrived at Dorian's penthouse the next day with a knot in her stomach. When the elevator doors opened, she found him waiting, dressed more casually than usual in jeans and a button-down shirt. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. Sierra wheeled in her cleaning cart. "I still have a job to do. Sierra, please, can we talk first?" She crossed her arms. "Fine, talk." Dorian gestured toward the living room. "Would you sit down?" "I'll stand," he sighed. "I deserve that. I deserve your anger." "What I want to know," Sierra said, "is if all of this," she gestured around the penthouse, "was just you feeling guilty about what your company is doing to my neighborhood." "No," Dorian said firmly. "My interest in you had nothing to do with the Newark project. In fact, until yesterday, I had no idea you lived in that neighborhood. So, it's just a coincidence that your company is pushing my family out of our home." Dorian ran a hand through his hair. It's not that simple, please let me explain. Sierra reluctantly followed him to the kitchen island and sat down. Coffee, he offered. Just talk, Dorian, he nodded. Kessler Data Security was originally focused on cybersecurity for businesses. But last year we expanded into smart building technology. The board saw real estate development as a natural extension. And you just went along with it? I delegated, Dorian admitted. I let the board and project managers handle the details while I focused on our core business. That was my first mistake, Sierra scoffed. Poor CEO, too busy to notice his company was destroying lives. You're right, Dorian said, surprising her. I should have paid more attention. But when I saw you at that meeting yesterday, when I realized how this was affecting actual people I care about, I knew I had to look more closely. And what did you find? I spent all night reviewing the project documents, Dorian said, pulling out a folder. The original proposal included affordable housing units and relocation assistance for current residents, but somewhere along the way, those provisions were scaled back to maximize profits. Of course they were, Sierra muttered. I didn't approve those changes, Dorian insisted, but I'm responsible for them because it's my company. Sierra studied his face. He seemed genuinely distressed. So what are you going to do about it? That's what I wanted to talk to you about. Dorian opened the folder. I've drafted a revised proposal that restores the original commitments for affordable housing. It also includes a community benefit agreement that would give current residents first option on the new units at their current rent rates. Sierra raised an eyebrow. Your board approved this? Not yet. Some of them won't like it. It will reduce the project's profitability, so it probably won't happen. It will happen, Dorian said firmly, because I'm making it a condition of our continued involvement. If the developers don't accept these terms, we'll pull our investment. Sierra stared at him. You would do that? Yes. Why? Your board will be furious. Dorian met her gaze. Because it's the right thing to do, and because... He hesitated. Because I care about you, Sierra, more than I should, given how little time we've known each other. Sierra felt her heart skip. Dorian, you don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to fix this. Sierra nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Part of her wanted to believe him, but another part remained suspicious. I should get to work, she finally said, standing up. Of course. Sierra cleaned in silence, feeling Dorian's eyes on her occasionally. When she finished, he walked her to the elevator. I have a board meeting tomorrow morning, he said. I'll present the revised proposal then. Good luck, Sierra said stiffly. Sierra, Dorian said as the elevator doors began to close. I meant what I said. About caring. The doors closed before she could respond. The next few days were tense for Sierra. She hadn't heard from Dorian about the board meeting, and her neighbors were anxiously awaiting news about the development project. Any word from your fancy friend at Kessler? Justin asked one evening as they ate dinner. Sierra had told her brother and grandmother about her connection to Dorian after the community meeting. He's not my friend, Sierra replied. And no, I haven't heard anything. He seemed nice, Grandma, Rose commented. The way he stood up at that meeting. Don't get your hopes up, Sierra warned. Corporate promises don't mean much. But 3 days later, Sierra's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Is this Sierra James? A woman's voice asked. When she answered, yes. This is Monica Chen, Mr. Kessler's assistant. He asked me to inform you that there will be another community meeting tonight at 7 regarding the Newark Renewal Project. He thought you might want to attend. Sierra thanked her and hung up, puzzled. Why wouldn't Dorian call her himself? That evening, Sierra, Justin, and Grandma Rose arrived at the community center to find it packed again. The developers were there, looking less confident than before. And at the front of the room, standing slightly apart, was Dorian, his expression unreadable. The lead developer cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. We wanted to update you on some changes to the Newark Renewal Project. A murmur ran through the crowd. After further consideration and consultation with our partners, we've decided to revise our approach to better serve the existing community. He outlined the new plan, which included everything Dorian had mentioned to Sierra: affordable housing units, rent protections for current residents, and a community benefit agreement. This revised approach was strongly advocated by our technology partner, Kessler Data Security, the developer added, glancing at Dorian. After the presentation, residents asked pointed questions, but the answers seemed more satisfactory this time. The meeting ended with cautious optimism. As people filed out, Sierra watched Dorian being confronted by a well-dressed man who appeared angry. They argued briefly before the man stormed off. Dorian's shoulders sagged as he gathered his papers. Sierra hesitated, then approached him. That looked intense. Dorian looked up, surprised to see her. "Sierra, did you hear the presentation?" "I did. It sounds promising." "It's more than promising, it's happening." Dorian's smile was tired but genuine, though not everyone is happy about it. "Your board member?" "Former board member," Dorian corrected. "He resigned in protest after our meeting." Sierra's eyes widened. "Because of the changes you made to the project?" "Partly, and partly because I told them I'm stepping back from all residential development projects until we create better guidelines for community impact." "You did that?" Dorian nodded. "It was the right decision. Though our stock price took a hit when the news broke this afternoon, Sierra suddenly understood why he hadn't called her himself. "You've had a rough day." "Worth it," Dorian said simply. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. "Would you like to get coffee?" Dorian finally asked. "There's a diner around the corner." Sierra glanced at her grandmother and brother, who were chatting with neighbors. "I should probably get them home another time then." Sierra hesitated, then made a decision. "Actually, wait here a minute." She walked over to her family and had a quick conversation. Justin grinned and gave her a thumbs up, while Grandma Rose smiled knowingly. Sierra returned to Dorian. "Coffee sounds good." The diner was a far cry from Dorian's sleek penthouse, bright. Fluorescent lights, vinyl booths and laminated menus, but Dorian seemed comfortable as they slid into a booth. "So," Sierra said after they ordered coffee, "you gave up millions of dollars and lost a board member, all to help a neighborhood full of strangers." "Not all strangers," Dorian replied, looking at her intently. Sierra felt her cheeks warm. "Be serious." "I am serious. Meeting you, it changed something for me, Sierra. I've spent years building her company, making money, living in that sterile penthouse, and for what? I was lonely, empty. Until I fell asleep on your couch?" Sierra asked skeptically. Dorian laughed. "It sounds ridiculous when you put it that way. But yes, seeing you there, so exhausted from working 3 jobs to take care of your family, it made me realize how disconnected I'd become from real life. From what matters." Sierra stirred her coffee. "And what matters to you, Dorian?" "Connection. Purpose, doing the right thing." He reached across the table and tentatively touched her hand. "You," Sierra didn't pull away. "You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're hardworking, loyal, and fiercely protective of your family. I know you love books that make you cry and hate pretentious coffee shops. I know you sleep with your brow furrowed, like you're solving problems even in your dreams." Sierra looked down at their hands. "This is crazy. A month ago, I was just your cleaning lady." "You were never just anything to me, Sierra." The waitress brought their coffee, breaking the moment. Sierra wrapped her hands around the warm mug, trying to sort through her feelings. "What happens now?" she asked. "That depends on you," Dorian replied. "I've made my choice. I'm committed to doing better as a CEO and as a person. I want to see where this connection between us might lead, but only if you want that too." Sierra took a deep breath. "I need time. This is all happening so fast." "I understand." Dorian reached into his pocket and pulled out a key. "This is for you." Sierra stared at it. "What is it?" "A key to my penthouse." "Dorian, I can't—" "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "I travel a lot for work. That place sits empty most of the time. I thought, maybe when you need rest, real rest, you could use it. Toe strings attached." Sierra was speechless. "You don't have to take it," Dorian said. "I just wanted you to know that you have a safe place if you need it." Sierra slowly reached for the key. "I don't know what to say." Say you'll think about everything. That's all I'm asking." They finished their coffee and Dorian walked Sierra home. At her door he hesitated. "Can I see you again, outside of your cleaning schedule?" Sierra thought about the key in her pocket, about his face when he stood up to the developers, about the way he looked at her like she was something precious. "Yes," she said finally. "I'd like that." Dorian's smile lit up his face. "Good night." "Sierra." "Good night, Dorian." Inside, Sierra found Justin and Grandma Rose waiting up for her. "So," Justin prompted, "what's the deal with you and the CEO?" Sierra shook her head, smiling. "I honestly don't know yet." "He's handsome," Grandma Rose observed, "and he seems to care about you." "He gave me a key to his penthouse," Sierra admitted, showing them. Justin whistled. "Moving fast, isn't he?" "Not like that," Sierra explained Dorian's offer. "He says it's just a place for me to rest when I need it." Grandma Rose said knowingly. "That man is smitten with you, Sierra James." "Don't be ridiculous, Grandma. I'm—" "Old nut blind," her grandmother replied. "The way he looks at you reminds me of how your grandfather used to look at me." Sierra felt her heart flutter. Could it be true? Could someone like Dorian really care for someone like her? Over the next few weeks, Sierra and Dorian began seeing each other outside of her cleaning job. He took her to dinner at restaurants where she felt underdressed, but he made her feel comfortable. She took him to her favorite bookstore, where he insisted on buying her 3 novels she'd mentioned wanting to read. Slowly, cautiously, Sierra let her walls down. She told him about her parents, about the struggle of becoming her brother's guardian. At 18, about her dreams of going to college someday. Dorian listened, really listened, in a way no one ever had before. One night, as they walked along the river after dinner, Dorian took her hand. "I have to go to London next week," he said. "Board meetings I can't miss." "How long will you be gone?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. Sierra nodded, surprised by the disappointment she felt. "I'll miss you." Dorian stopped walking and turned to face her. "I've never had someone to miss me before. Not really." "Well, now you do." He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. But Sierra didn't want to pull away. She rose on her tiptoes and met his lips with hers. The kiss was gentle at first, then deeper, filled with all the emotions they'd been carefully navigating for weeks. When they finally broke apart, Sierra felt breathless. "I've been wanting to do that since you fell asleep on my couch," Dorian admitted. Sierra laughed. "That's not very romantic." "On the contrary," Dorian said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "That was the moment I started falling for you." Later that night, as Sierra got ready for bed, she thought about how much her life had changed in just a few weeks. She still worked 3 jobs. Her family still struggled with bills. But for the first time in years, she felt hope. Not just for herself, but for a future that might include something more than just surviving. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming not of bills or schedules, but of possibilities. The 2 weeks without Dorian stretched into 3, then nearly 4. Sierra tried not to count the days, but found herself checking her phone constantly for his messages. They spoke when they could, with Dorian calling her between meetings, sometimes sounding exhausted, but always making time to hear about her day. "I miss you," he told her during one late-night call. "London is miserable without you." "You're just saying that because it's raining," Sierra teased, though her heart ached at the distance between them. "It's always raining in London, but I've never minded it before." Sierra smiled into the phone. "When are you coming home?" "Soon. There's been a complication with the board. They're not happy about our new community-focused direction." "Is your job in danger?" Sierra asked, suddenly worried. "No, nothing like that. I founded the company. They can't push me out. But they're making things difficult." Sierra bit her lip. "This is because of me, isn't it? Because of what you did for my neighborhood." "It's because I'm finally doing the right thing," Dorian corrected her. "And that's because of you, yes. But I don't regret it for a second." After they hung up, Sierra stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Dorian had upended his entire business strategy for her community. No one had ever made such sacrifices for her before, and it terrified her. The next morning, Sierra nearly collapsed during her shift at the diner. She'd been pushing herself harder than usual, picking up extra shifts to compensate for Justin's increased tuition after a scholarship fell through. "Sierra, you need to go home," Manny insisted, helping her to a chair in the back room. "You're running yourself into the ground." "I'm fine," she insisted, "just a little dizzy." "You're not fine. You're exhausted. I'm calling you a cab." "I can't afford a cab." Manny crossed his arms. "Then call someone to pick you up. But you're not finishing this shift, and that's final." Sierra reluctantly agreed, but as she considered who to call, she realized her options were limited. Her grandmother didn't drive, and Justin was in class. Her hand hovered over Dorian's key, in her pocket. He was thousands of miles away. Using his penthouse felt like crossing a line she wasn't sure she was ready to cross, but the alternative was sitting in the diner's back room for hours until she felt strong enough to take the bus. "Home." "Actually, Manny, I have somewhere I can go," she said finally. "I just need help getting to the Apex building downtown." 20 minutes later, a cab dropped Sierra off at the luxury high-rise. The doorman recognized her immediately. "Ms. James, we weren't expecting you today." Sierra showed him the key. "Mr. Kessler said I could use the place when I needed to rest." The doorman nodded. "Of course, go right up." The penthouse was silent and spotless. The cleaning service had obviously continued in her absence. Sierra felt strangely nervous as she stepped inside, even though she'd been there dozens of times before. But this was different. She wasn't here to clean. She wasn't here with Dorian. She was here alone, accepting his offer of a safe place to rest. Sierra walked to the master bedroom, a room she'd cleaned many times, but never really looked at closely. The king-sized bed was immaculately made with crisp white sheets and a plush comforter. She sat on the edge, running her hand over the soft material. She only meant to lie down for a moment, just until the room stopped spinning. But the moment her head hit the pillow, exhaustion claimed her. When Sierra woke up, the room was dark. She blinked in confusion, momentarily forgetting where she was. Then she remembered Dorian's penthouse. She'd fallen asleep in his bed. Sierra checked her phone. It was past midnight. She had several missed calls from her grandmother and Justin. Quickly, she called them back. "Sierra? Where are you?" her grandmother asked, worry clear in her voice. "I'm fine, Grandma. I wasn't feeling well after my shift, so I'm staying at a friend's place." "Dorian's?" her grandmother guessed. Sierra sighed. "Yes, but he's not here. He's still in London. I just needed somewhere to rest." "Good. You need rest. Stay there as long as you need." After reassuring her family, Sierra got up and wandered through the dark penthouse. She felt strange being there alone, like she was trespassing despite having a key and permission. In the kitchen, she found herself opening the refrigerator. It was mostly empty, but there was some orange juice and eggs. Sierra smiled, remembering the first time she'd woken up on Dorian's couch to the smell of eggs cooking. She made herself a simple meal and sat at the kitchen island, surrounded by the quiet luxury of Dorian's home. As she ate, she thought about how different their worlds were. He lived in a penthouse with a view of the entire city. She shared a small apartment with her brother and grandmother. He ran a multi-million-dollar company. She worked 3 jobs, just to make ends meet, yet somehow they'd found each other. And despite all their differences, there was something real between them, something that scared her almost as much as it thrilled her. Sierra ended up staying at the penthouse for 2 days, sleeping more than she had in years. She called in sick to her jobs and let her body finally get the rest it desperately needed. On the 3rd morning, her phone rang. It was Dorian. "I just landed," he said without preamble. "I'm on my way home." Sierra froze. "Home? As in the penthouse?" "Yes. I caught an earlier flight. I couldn't wait any longer to see you." Sierra looked around frantically. She was still in his penthouse, wearing one of his t-shirts that she'd found in a drawer. "Dorian, I'm actually at your place." There was a pause. "You're at the penthouse?" "Yes. I wasn't feeling well, and I remembered your offer, and I needed somewhere to rest." "Sierra, that's exactly why I gave you the key. I'm glad you used it." His voice softened. "Are you feeling better?" "Much better. I should probably go before you get here. I don't want to impose." "Stay," Dorian said quickly. "Please, I'll be there in about 20 minutes. After they hung up, Sierra rushed to shower and change back into her clothes. She felt nervous suddenly, like this was crossing some invisible line in their relationship. Exactly 20 minutes later, the elevator dinged. Sierra stood awkwardly in the living room as Dorian stepped in, looking tired from travel but breaking into a wide smile when he saw her. "Sierra," he said, dropping his bags and crossing the room to her. She met him halfway, and he pulled her into his arms. The embrace felt like coming home after a long journey. "I missed you," she admitted, her face pressed against his chest. "I missed you more," he murmured into her hair. When they finally pulled apart, Dorian studied her face. "You really weren't feeling well, you looked tired." Sierra shrugged. "I've been pushing myself too hard, I almost passed out at the diner." Concern filled Dorian's eyes. "Sierra, that's serious. Have you seen a doctor?" "I don't need a doctor. I just needed rest." "And did you get it? Here?" Sierra nodded. "Yes, I've been here for 2 days, actually. I hope that's okay." More than okay. Dorian led her to the couch, the same one she'd first fallen asleep on. "I want you to think of this. Place is yours too." Sierra tensed. "Dorian, I can't—" I know, too fast." He squeezed her hand. "But I meant what I said when I gave you the key. This place is yours when you need it. No strings attached." "Thank you," Sierra said quietly. "For everything. The neighborhood project, the key, just all of it. You don't need to thank me, especially for the project. That was the right thing to do. How was London? Did you resolve the board issues?" Dorian's expression changed slightly. "More or less. There's been a significant shift in the company." "What kind of shift?" "Well," Dorian took a deep breath. "I've stepped back from daily operations." Sierra stared at him. "What? You left your company?" "Not exactly. I'm still the majority shareholder and chairman of the board, but I've appointed a new CEO to handle day-to-day management." "Why would you do that?" "You love your company." Dorian looked at her intently. "Because I realized there are more important things in life than quarterly earnings reports. The company was consuming me. I was becoming someone I didn't want to be." "And what will you do now?" "I'm starting a foundation focused on ethical technology and community development, using my resources to help neighborhoods like yours, not hurt them." Sierra shook her head in amazement. "You've changed so much in such a short time." "Because of you," Dorian said simply. "You woke me up, Sierra, in every way that matters." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. With Dorian back in Newark, they spent as much time together as Sierra's hectic schedule allowed. He never pressured her to cut back on work, but he did find subtle ways to make her life easier, arranging for a car service to take her between jobs, having groceries delivered to her grandmother's apartment, finding a better scholarship for Justin. At first, Sierra resisted these gestures. "I don't need charity," she insisted. "It's not charity," Dorian replied. "It's what people do when they care about each other. They help." Slowly, Sierra began to accept his help, and as she did, she found herself with something she hadn't had in years' time. Time to read, time to sleep, time to dream about a future beyond just surviving. One evening, as they walked through the park near her apartment, Dorian asked the question Sierra had been dreading. "Have you thought about quitting one of your jobs? Maybe the cleaning service?" Sierra tensed. "I can't afford to." "What if you could? What would you do with that time?" "I don't know. Maybe take some classes at the community college with Justin." Dorian nodded. "You should. You're brilliant, Sierra. You could do anything you set your mind to." "Easy for you to say. You were born with advantages." "True. But that doesn't mean you can't create your own advantages now." Dorian stopped walking and turned to face her. "I want to help you do that, not because I pity you, but because I believe in you." Sierra looked away. "Dorian, I appreciate everything you've done, but I need to stand on my own 2 feet." "You can stand on your own feet while still accepting a helping hand," Dorian argued gently. "That's not weakness. It's how people build better lives together." That night, Sierra couldn't sleep. Dorian's words kept replaying in her mind. Was she being stubborn? Was her pride keeping her trapped in a cycle of exhaustion and struggle? The next morning, Sierra made a decision. She called the cleaning service and gave her 2 weeks' notice. Then she called the community college and asked about enrollment for the upcoming semester. When she told Dorian about her decision, his face lit up with pride. "What will you study?" "Business administration," Sierra said with determination. "I want to understand your world better." Dorian laughed. "My world is wherever you are now." As the weeks passed, Sierra and Dorian settled into a new rhythm. She continued working at the diner and the call center while taking classes. Dorian focused on his foundation, often consulting with her about community needs. They spent more nights at the penthouse, which slowly began to feel warmer, more lived in. Sierra brought her favorite books. Dorian replaced his modern art with photographs of places they'd visited together. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Dorian took Sierra's hand. "I love you," he said simply. "I don't expect you to say it back, I just wanted you to know." Sierra looked at him, this man who had upended his entire life after finding her asleep on his couch. "I love you too," she replied, surprising herself with how easily the words came. Dorian's smile was brighter than the setting sun. Later that night, as they lay together in his bed, now their bed, Sierra realized how far they'd come. From employer and employee to something neither of them could have imagined. "What are you thinking about?" Dorian asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "How different everything is now. How different I am." "Good different," Sierra nodded. "Good different. I'm still me, still working hard for my family, but now I'm also working for my future." "Our future," Dorian pulled her closer. "I like the sound of that." The next morning, Sierra had to leave early for class. She kissed a still sleeping Dorian goodbye and slipped out quietly. After class, she had a long shift at the diner. By the time she finished, she was exhausted. She thought about going back to her grandmother's apartment, but the thought of the crowded bus made her wince. Almost without thinking, she headed for the Apex instead. The doorman greeted her by name now, and the elevator attendant asked about her classes. When Sierra reached the penthouse, she expected to find Dorian waiting, but the place was empty and quiet. She frowned, checking her phone. No messages. As she walked toward the bedroom to change, she noticed a single key sitting on the kitchen counter beside a note. Her heart skipped a beat. Was this goodbye? Had Dorian changed his mind about them? With trembling hands, Sierra picked up the note. Next to it was a plate with eggs and a cup of coffee, kept warm in a thermal carafe, just how she liked it. The note read, "This place was never a home until you fell asleep in it. If you're willing, I'd like to be the one who watches over you for once." Sierra turned the key over in her hand. It wasn't the key to the penthouse. She already had that. This was different, smaller, with a heart-shaped keychain attached. She looked around the penthouse, noticing for the first time that something was different. On the wall near the door hung a framed photograph she'd never seen before. It showed a small house with a garden, bright and welcoming. As Sierra stood there trying to understand, the elevator dinged. Dorian stepped in, looking nervous. "You're home," he said, then corrected himself. "You're here." Sierra held up the key. "What is this?" Dorian walked closer. "It's a key to our future if you want it." "I don't understand." "That house in the photograph," Dorian explained, gesturing to the framed picture. "I bought it. It's near the community college, close to your grandmother's place. It has a garden for her and an office where Justin can study." Sierra's eyes widened. "You bought a house? For all of us? For you to decide what you want. You can live there with your family, or we can live there together, or you can stay here with me, or..." Dorian took a deep breath. "Or you can take some time to think about what you really want." Sierra looked at the key, then at the man before her. This man who had learned to make eggs just the way she liked them, who had read her favorite book because it mattered to her, who had changed his entire life's direction after finding her asleep on his couch. "What do you want, Dorian?" she asked softly. "I want you to be happy," he answered without hesitation. "I want to be the one who watches over you when you sleep, the one who makes you breakfast, the one who supports your dreams. But most of all, I want you to have choices, real choices, not just the ones circumstances forced on you." Sierra felt tears welling in her eyes. For so long, she'd been the one taking care of everyone else. The one watching over her brother, her grandmother, making sure they had what they needed. Now someone wanted to watch over her. Sierra stood there, trembling, the key clutched in her hand, the weight of every wall she'd built pressing against her chest, unsure whether to stay here or run toward the life she never thought she could have. But as she looked into Dorian's eyes, the choice suddenly became clear. She took a step forward.